Hi there, and welcome to the HR Podcast. This is Linda Misegadis
and Cyndi Manuel, and we'll be your co-hosts. After spending years working in and with HR, we thought, why not start a podcast to support the important HR community? We believe the way things have always been done isn't necessarily what's going to work in the future. So we're diving into topics that support HR and working women as they navigate the future of work. We're talking about professional growth and also how we can support each other as human beings.
We can't wait to bring you insights from HR experts, thought leaders, and inspiring women who are making a real difference in their organization and communities. They'll share their journeys and tips on balancing work and life in a better way. We're excited to learn alongside you and hope you'll pick up some great takeaways from tips and tricks to worksheets that you can actually use in your daily life. So grab your favorite beverage
or lace up your walking shoes and join us for the HR Her Resources Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Her Resources Podcast. I'm so excited to be back and with my co-host Cyndi Manuel. How are you today, Cyndi?
I'm doing well. Happy New Year. Happy 2025.
Holy cow,
so
right?
Ready. Yes. This is one of the things I love about being a change champion, I guess, is I actually really enjoy the new year. It's like a fresh start, fresh perspective, and all those things, right?
I love that. Yeah, for sure. Well, and I don't know about you, but last year went by pretty fast. But even like this week went by really fast. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, it's Friday. So it was crazy. Usually I'm like, when will Friday get here? But today it was like, holy cow, I can't believe it's Friday. So no, it's been a busy week back at it. Well, we are very excited for our guest today. Krystyn Sadler is joining us, and we're going to be talking about breaking the glass ceiling and being a culture champion. And so we're super excited to have her on the show with us. So let me tell everybody a little bit about who Krystyn is. She is the CEO and culture warrior of Mosaic Consulting Group. She's been with Mosaic since 2017 and previously held the position of Vice President of People and Culture Warrior, where she was responsible for all aspects of Mosaic's team experience, including culture, employee engagement benefits, comp, talent, HR programs, and more. As president, Krystyn combines passion for employee and client expertise with data-driven approach to meet Mosaic's business needs and support company values. And I know I can say that for sure. Mosaic is a partner of UKG, and they do amazing work with us. So, but Krystyn has extensive background in human resources for all of our HR folks out there in healthcare, legal, and professional services industries. And during this time, her focus and impact was within talent acquisition and retention strategy, employee engagement, well-being, and HR operations and compliance. This experience, coupled with her overall business impact, has provided an opportunity to help guide other leaders who are looking to make a difference in their organizations. And in her free time, Krystyn enjoys, like she has any free time, but in her free time, Krystyn enjoys watching her two boys, Austin and Garrett, play sports, baseball and soccer. And she and her husband are big Chicago Cub fans, and they visit different stadiums around the country. She's an avid reader with a passion for continuous learning in business psychology and organizational culture. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Linda, that was so much. Thank you. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it funny to hear your bio read? Because you're like, wow, I'm kind of impressive when you hear those things.
I am like, wow, how can we shorten that? Yeah.
I'm a big deal.
Oh, no.
No, I love it. Well, we are really happy to have you on the show and really kind of talk to you about, breaking that glass ceiling for women. As you know, the Her Resources podcast, we're very focused in on women and women in leadership and HR. And so I was super happy when you said you'd be willing to join us on the show.
Absolutely. This is such a exciting opportunity to be able to share a little bit more about my journey and experience, but just to be around two other powerful women who care about making this a topic. So I love, and appreciate to be a part of this. So thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. Well, so just as a little icebreaker, like what inspired you to step into the role of a culture warrior? Because I love that title.
Yes. I thought that was so clever. How did that come up too?
Yeah, I'm not the one that created it. So there is a little bit of a story behind that. One that's a favorite of mine. And when I joined Mosaic, one of the first questions Vicky asked me in the interview process was, how do you protect a culture as it grows? And they were growing about 30% year over year when I first joined. And it was a smaller organization at that point. It was about 45 people. And so today we sit at around 250 and got to be a part of that growth, which is pretty exciting. And I know in my past world of human resources, my last organization, I'd hit that impasse where you have to decide, what does the HR department mean in this business? Is it the police officer, or do you actually get to have a part of this strategic conversation? Is there an importance to culture? What does that exactly mean? And especially back in 2015 kind of time frame there, that was an interesting conversation around culture. And it was before it was a buzzword, right? So
I at that time, the business I was working at really needed it to be more about the policies and the procedures, which is so fantastic and needed. I really wanted to take a different role. And so I had an opportunity with meeting Vicky and Mosaic, and the CFO at the time, Mike Webb, is the person that I had worked with him previously, and he recommended me over to Mosaic, kept saying, Krystyn, it's what you've been looking for, trust me. And so as I took the job, it was interesting because even Mike was like, don't call it HR, what do you want to call it? I was like, it's people and culture. And he was like, love it. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to be the director of people and culture. And when I talked to Vicky, she said, love it and warrior. So she was the one that actually gave that title of culture warrior. And at that point, I was like, I'm where I need to be beyond any stretch of doubt. Like, I'm where I need to be. And so each time I've had an opportunity to accelerate my career and receive a promotion or a change of title, I have not let go of that culture warrior, including when I became president or CEO. It was like some type of badge of honor that I've carried, but also I take it seriously because it does at the end of the day mean, especially now more than ever, like culture starts with me. And so I have to not only be that behavior, but challenge myself on what that means to uphold that culture, especially the culture that the organization was originally founded on. So that's where it comes from is, I was like, people and culture, she said, add warrior, and it's a done deal. Yes. I love it. That is great. What a great story.
I have a similar, I kind of had a similar situation when Linda and I both left McData. Linda went to the city and county of Denver, and I was still doing HR at the time, mostly employee relations and, a lot of the very needed, parts of HR, right? Like you were saying, Krystyn. But then Linda called me and said, hey, we're making a change here at the city and county of Denver. Do you want to come be a part of that? And I was like, that feels very positive to me and very proactive as opposed to maybe more reactive. And so same thing. So I totally can get what you're saying about that. I think that's so great.
No, I love it. What a great story. Well, so what were some of the pivotal moments in your career that kind of helped you rise into leadership? Because not everybody is keen on leadership. And then some people are like, that's just kind of like they're destined to be on that path, whether they want to or not.
Great question. I think I've always been infatuated with leadership, more of the draw to it and to understand it and to study it. So my master's is actually in strategic leadership because I was all in. I started on the MBA, which I laugh now at this next comment. Started an MBA and I'm like, whew, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. So I made a little bit of a curveball and a change there and went more into the strategic leadership as it relates to business. And so I did a little bit of a turn there. And which again, I now laugh at that moment of like, oh no, you're over a business. So that's kind of comical. But all that to be said, I felt like I came out of my shell in college. I went to University of Tennessee in Chattanooga. So it's a smaller, UT, university. And, the business school was so fantastic and very much loved my experience there. But I found myself always drawn to, okay, I want to, I joined a sorority, Sigma Kappa, but I wanted to be in charge. And not just for not for the sorority, for like Panhellenic. It was always like, what else can I do? I wanted to be in charge of homecoming for the university, not just for my sorority. So I found myself going, okay, but how do you advance, the planning of homecoming, for example, and continue to move it? So I found myself always drawn towards, well, who's the one that gets to decide what this looks like? And I've always had this draw towards, and how do you make it fair for everyone? And that started, I love asking the question of people like, what was your first job and what was your takeaway from it? Because it's usually a tell sign of like kind of from that moment on to who they become. Which by the way, YMCA birthday party girl, proud of it. Did it for 3 years, all the way until college. And the best part of that is, when now I understand this more than ever, when mom said, I don't want to take that cake home, I was like, what's wrong with you? This is cake. I'm 16. I can eat as much cake as I want. At that point now, I'm like, no, I don't want to take this cake home. I understand it, but have all this cake left over twice on Saturday and one on Sunday. And I was like, okay, I'm going to share this with people here at the YMCA, but I'm like, you just had that. You had it last week. You don't normally get it. And all of a sudden, again, I was drawn to making it fair for everyone. So I've had this draw of how can you help bring fairness across the board? And it just still sticks with me to this day. So I've had pivotal moments as well where I'm drawn to people and helping people discover their own leadership, and have been so fortunate that even a part of my master's program, I get to work with another leader around how do you bring leadership development back into your organization in a different way. And I've had programs like that where I've been able to pull back into Mosaic. And again, for me, it's not just about being a leader, but how do you actually help others find their own leadership styles and help them along their leadership journey. So I've been very, very honored to be able to be a part of other people's leadership stories too.
And that is the kind of what a good leader does, right? It's not all about them. It's how do I support and help other people to become the best that they can be. So
I totally agree.
That's the epitome of a leader. Yeah.
Well, there's never a story without challenges. So what kind of challenges have you faced as you've grown in that leadership? Because really, I mean, women have come a long way. So Cyndi and I always say this, like, we don't want to imply that women are, back in the olden age or something like that. We have come a long way, but we have a long way to go. And there have been a lot of challenges along the way. So talk a little bit about what you faced as you've grown in your leadership role.
Yeah, I'll talk about it from a career aspect and a personal. On the personal, and I know I'm not the only one that's had this struggle. You have this struggle of, the balance of home life and professional, and the amount of people, specifically males, that are towards the end of their career that come back and always tell me, whatever you do, like the time goes by so fast. Be there for your boys, be there for your kids. Don't miss the pivotal moments. Don't miss the little moments, And I find it interesting that, again, at the end of their career, giving you their advice, right? They're speaking to the day-to-day. They're not speaking about birthday parties or Christmas. Like, they're speaking about the day-to-day. And so I have been challenged with, I'm going to call it mom guilt, because that's what it feels like at times. When I'm traveling for work and I'm away, right? And I'm missing that basketball game, or I'm missing I came home with my progress report, or, whatever that may be. I love to be present with my kids. I, as you mentioned, love watching them play sports, right? We've got karate. We got a competition tonight for board breakers. Like, it's called speed breakers. How many boards can you break in a minute, right? I'm going to be there cheering on my kids, right? So when I miss some of those moments, you have those moments where you're like, is this worth it? Right? Is this worth it? I'm missing this. So mom guilt's real, and that is something, it goes up and down. It's never gone. It's never cured. But one of my mentors, which is Vicky Hill, she is a great reminder when I have those moments. And I think I even did like a post on this on LinkedIn once within the last year, but she reminded me that it's not just those moments, though. They're seeing you in action. They see what hard work looks like. That whether you're a girl mom, you're showing them the path. If you're a boy mom, or you have both, or whatever, I'm showing them what that partnership can look like. And I have an incredible husband who is such an incredible partner that understands and appreciates the work that I do, and that we're able to be true partners when it comes to our kids in our home. There's not just one role, right? And so I'm fortunate for that. So those are some of the more personals, like mom guilt's real, and it's okay. It's okay to say it out loud and express it. On the professional side, I think I shared this with you guys in email. It's constantly a battle of a reminder of like, I don't know, I sit in many meeting rooms where I'm the only woman across the table from many, other executives, other organizations, other leaders. And many times in none, I look around and I'm like, wow, I'm the one that's different in the room, and that's okay. But sometimes it can play a little mental game of like, okay, because I don't know about you guys. I
Yes.
spent the first 15 years of my career trying to look older so I could be taken seriously. And then you hit a
Right.
certain age where we're like, okay, now I would like to
Now I
please
wanna
look
look
younger.
Yes,
Like this wrinkle right here.
yeah.
So
I don't
I'm
need
on
to be
that
so
side.
serious.
I'm on that side. But there
Yes.
was a part of my career where I was like trying to be taken seriously. Right. And so there's been parts of my journey where you really you have to be very in tune with who you are, what you're able to bring, and kind of sometimes just keep your head down and like really just keep doing what you're doing. It will be recognized. But
Yeah.
you can't do it alone. You have to have your champions. You have to have your mentors. I've had incredible mentors along my path. And
great.
as many times as somebody says, you don't have the experience for that, or you're too young for that. That's the experience is the nicer way to say that sometimes. The amount of times that I've been told I was told a year ago, you won't be a CEO. You don't have enough experience for that. And I'm like,
Wow.
Did you reach back out to that person and say, hey, I want to share some really cool news with you?
That's right.
right?
That's right. That's it. With the hair. I totally agree.
Fortunately, I believed in myself. Others believed in me as well.
Yeah.
And you sometimes just have to block those voices out and just focus on yourself and what you're contributing, what you're doing. And so there's been those challenges. I know other women face that as well. So you got to stay, don't let it get in your head. Just believe in yourself, have that confidence, and go prove them wrong.
Right.
I like that. Well, I guess it's hard to do. Cyndi and I have talked about this in the past too. Like I'm a big proponent of this. I know Cyndi is too. Is like we're only here because of the women who came before us. So I'm a big believer of reaching back and providing a hand up to my fellow women out there. But I do know that that's not always been the way of thinking, and not all women think that way either. Sometimes they forget where they came from and how we got here, and they feel like they need to be a part of the boys club, right? So now they have to carry themselves differently. Maybe they have to kind of put their fellow women to the side. And what are your thoughts around that? And how have you encountered that? And if you have you dealt with that?
Good question.
Okay, such a great question. I gotta say, and I'm not just saying this because of the UKG relationship here. Like I have to. I just got done. I've said this before. I love when you find a female leader that does not change their energy levels and they just come and they're there and they're powerful. The first time I saw Jen Morgan speak, I was okay, girl. And then you meet Rachel Barger and you're like, oh, and then even one-on-one, that energy level is there. And that was like my first impression of them as female leaders of like, they brought their energy and their style and they're like, loved it. So I hear what you're saying. Yes. There's been a few things in my career that I've been drawn to that I wanted to give back for other women leaders that have propped me up. I can literally name all of them. And again, you heard me say Mike Webb, like he's been a huge supporter. Vicky Hill has given me so much opportunity and been there for every phone call to say, you can do it as well. And she saw it probably before I even did, to be honest. So I'm like, thank you. But I've had, my first boss, I was working at HCA right out of undergrad. I graduated with my HR degree. I was like ready to go. And all I want to do is be in HR. I'll work at the front desk of HR. I'll file all the files. In fact, I did actually file all the files. 10,000 employees. 10,000 employees. For all the younger crowd, they used to be paper. You used to have to.
Even
like a big file room.
Microfiche. I remember the old microfiche.
Fax machines are real. You had to tape the voided check so that it would run all the way through. Like it. This is a real thing that happens.
Absolutely.
So I will never forget my first boss, Patty Carver. She was incredible, and she gave me many opportunities to like hone in on my presentation skills, and would give me feedback all along the way. And then it was Jan Hallmark, huge champion. She actually is the one that got me over into my next job. I laugh because I haven't updated my resume since 2008, which is terrible. Like I got to get on that. But I've had these connections that have just been there saying, you know what, here's a great opportunity. Would you consider?
Right.
And have been my champions, right? So then I went to Amy Overstreet, which is where I met Mike Webb. Mike Webb brought me over to Mosaic. So I've had these great champions in a work environment. My mom's a huge champion, always will be, right? So anyways, all that to... Don't laugh. Linda, what was the original question?
I won't laugh at all.
Squirrel.
No, we do that all the time. No
we
worries.
do it all the time. Absolutely.
I was about to do this. And I had a point. Yeah.
It's meaningful
Yeah.
stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
It is everything you've
Work
said
out
has
at that.
been very meaningful. Thinking about how have you dealt with those women who maybe aren't as embracing of other women? Have you countered that, and kind of how have you dealt with that? So
I have. And sometimes you have to realize, like, is it just their personality and their style?
could be. Yeah.
Are they usually it's right, the very direct, the very,
Yeah.
comes across very powerful, right? But usually in that directness, there's a bit of, force and the feeling of, it's my way or the highway, right? So sometimes it's the delivery and that communication style. I love the disc. And so I'm like, it's high D's can sometimes be misconstrued, as, kind of one way or another when it comes to that. But I've found there to be some women leaders that unfortunately it's just like, okay, unless you're humble and look in the mirror, like, I'm never going to change you. You got to change your approach.
Yeah.
I personally have just found that the best thing I can do is control myself and my actions and find ways to lift others up, right? I'm not going to change somebody
all
else.
I can do. Yeah.
One of the coolest interactions I've ever had, Sarah McClory, who was my CFO in one of my prior lives, it's the first time I was pregnant. I was having my first baby. I totally thought I could have my cake and eat it too. I could still work my 12 to 14 hour days. I'm going to have this baby. It's going to be fine. I'm totally going to do that on the other end.
How hard is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
The way we've been having babies forever.
Yeah. And she was
that?
like, that's not going to happen that way. You're going to have to, be there for your child. Trust your priorities are going to change. And yes, you can still be career driven, but like, promise you, it's going to change. So she gave me a lot of coaching about being a mother and a working mother. Right.
I
and
love
so
that.
it was so impactful in my life.
Yeah.
From there on out, I have paying that forward. And so to the point where I've even had a few males that are like, do you do this for dads? I'm like, heck yeah, let's go. We'll do this with dads as well. But there's been many women that since my oldest is 9, so for the last 9 years, I've found ways to be able to give that back and do like coaching sessions up into, and then even after, whether they're even still at Mosaic or not, they're still people in my life that I love to keep in touch with and see them continue to succeed. And whether it's a choice of, I just want to be a dedicated mom, then more power to you. You want to continue that career, whatever that looks like. It's your journey, your life. But for me, I love being able to have, these like weekly one-on-ones that's talking about how are you mentally getting prepared for that next part of your journey. And then when you come back to work, how do you actually balance that? What does it look like? What are your options? And so that's been one of my ways, along with, again, like leadership development courses, but those are kind of the things in the middle, and coaching women on how to have salary conversations to advocate for themselves.
Love that.
I get all the random phone calls from all the girlfriends. Like, okay, Krystyn, I got the new job. This is what they think. What do you think?
You're like,
It's true.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest things, I think, for women is that salary negotiation piece, because we'll go fight for other people, but we have a hard time fighting for ourselves. And I think, and not wanting to, because women are also more inclined to only apply for a job they think they're 100% qualified for. And so then it's a am I worthy enough to say that I want this amount of salary? And can I justify that? Like, it's just a weird mental thing that we go through as women, and it's all about self-worth, right? It's really kind of crazy that we do that, but we do. So I think that's amazing that you coach women up on that.
I've been having those conversations. Right. I've been having those conversations with like interns and my daughter's roommates up at college and my daughter-in-law. We've had these conversations about, you don't have to tick every single box. What you bring to the table is unique and different and special. And if it's the right fit for you, you should be there. And back to what you were saying, Krystyn, at different phases of our lives. So, when you're young and before you maybe have a partner, before you maybe have kids, if you're going to have kids, that's a season of life. When you have a family, whatever that looks like, that's a season of life. Then when you get, empty nester, that's me. That's a season of life, right? And so the career changes, but it should support your life, because you should be working to live. And it sounds like that's kind of the mentoring overall that you're giving to people, which is such a gift.
I love
It's
that.
really a gift.
Well, and a reach back to Jen Morgan, one of the things that she said, that I was like, she was talking about when she was, I think is when she was co-CEO at SAP, and she left work every day at 3:00 to go pick her kids up. Like that was a
I
hard line
love
for
that.
her. And I love that she did that as the co-CEO. Yeah, I'm like,
She was
4 o'clock.
modeling good behavior.
yeah, exactly. And it's not
Mhm.
that she wasn't working or anything else, or that all of a sudden her day was done, but it's like at 3:00, my kids get out of school and I'm going to go pick them up. And that's just what
Mhm.
I'm going to do. And so, and
Exactly
I just,
right.
I'm like
That's my
that
priority.
I mean, when Cyndi and I were coming up, you pretended like you didn't even have kids.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Mm.
I'm not a mother. It's like, because you would never say I'm taking the day off because my child is sick. You'd call it sick for yourself because it
Mm.
just wasn't
Was
okay.
not
It's like we were
acceptable.
supposed to pretend like we didn't have, responsibilities outside of the workforce. And so I love how much it has changed and that women are so much more empowered today than they were in the
Yes.
past. So,
Yeah.
Yes.
no, that is
Mm.
really great. Well, that's a good segue into like what systemic barriers do you think still exist for women who are kind of trying to climb up into that leadership role? Because I think a lot of women are still a little hesitant to make that move, to go forward with that. So, what kind of barriers do
Mm.
you see still in the marketplace today?
Yeah, there is still pay inequity that is unfortunately still something we all have to deal with and have to pay attention to. I know
Mhm.
specifically, and this was in Vicky's heart. This is definitely in my heart as well. Our HR department, or people and culture, they run pay equity analysis every single year, and so they are specifically looking for at a statistical level, right?
Yeah.
We check that every year and want to make sure that we are able to say, right, we pay everybody fairly based off of that. But I made the comment earlier of just sometimes you look around, you're the only woman in the room, right? And
Yeah.
there's so much around that.
Yeah.
That is an interesting statement. There's a part of that too where, right, there are other minority statuses that feel the exact same way or may even be
Absolutely.
going, at least you are sitting in
Yeah.
the room, right? So,
That's
Exactly.
true.
Yes. Yeah.
there's, I've been fortunate that I have had even, male counterparts that are advocates and just see you for who you are and see you
Yes.
for, the experience you bring and the knowledge that's in your brain and appreciate the diversity in thought. And so
Yeah.
that's the part where, it's an interesting, I had this conversation with a CEO once, and I made the comment of, look around in your leadership team, what do you see? Right. And if you just see the same person staring back,
It's
consider,
all
Yeah.
you, right? Yeah.
consider that you actually may be in like an echo chamber. You may be looking at, so consider
Yeah.
thinking about that next hire. How can you add to that diversity? And
Yeah.
it's interesting because, again, you have that opportunity where you see that almost on a daily basis where you're sitting in a meeting again with other leaders, you kind of look around. I will say this, sometimes, just because you're the one that gets into that room, you're at the
Yeah.
point where you're making the hiring decisions. You're the person that is
Yeah.
making the compensation decisions, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that you will find yourself having the same, challenge of look in the mirror in those statements and make sure, you are a part of that change. You've also got to bring diversity even past your own, right, into
Yeah.
that conversation. So I feel like there are still barriers kind of left and right, but at the same time, they may sometimes be even our own barriers that we can impact
Sure.
and that we can change. And so
Yeah.
I think that would be kind of my
Yeah.
answer.
At the Delta Principle, we are transforming the way you experience change. Have you ever experienced an organizational change where your employees pushed back because it was too much, too fast, or they just didn't understand why they couldn't do things the way they've always done them? What about where communication was non-existent or unorganized, with important updates getting lost in the shuffle, leaving people confused? And have you ever experienced change where morale was at an all-time low because the change felt overwhelming and not aligned with your organization's culture? If you are being asked to lead an important organizational change, especially if you're new to leading change, or if you're just feeling overwhelmed, the Delta Principle is here to support you. We work closely with you as a trusted partner, co-creating real-world solutions to address your unique challenges, and we equip you and your organization for future success. Are you gearing up for your next transformation journey or exploring ways to strengthen your change management skills? Then let's connect. This year, we're thrilled to introduce Leading Change, a training designed for leaders driving organizational initiatives, and Navigating Change, a training tailored to empower teams and adapting to change with confidence. Our coaching and training sessions are fully customizable to meet your organization's unique needs. Reach out today to see how we can partner with you to make your next change a success. You can find us on LinkedIn or by emailing us at info@thedeltaprinciple.com.
Well, I'm curious, like when you were saying fairness and equity, talk a little bit about, though, the difference between fairness and equity, because I think sometimes, there's what we think is fair and then there's what is equitable. And I think sometimes those can get muddied where, it doesn't mean that we're going to pay everyone the same amount of money. So talk a little bit about what we mean when we say fair and equitable.
Yeah, that is a great question. I'm probably even going to lean on both of you too. I would love to hear your thoughts around this. I think from a fairness standpoint, there's a fairness around, do I have the same chances as others around me, right? Then it's up to you of what you're going to do, if you're going to take it, if you're going to raise your hand, if you're going to pursue it. When it comes from an equitable standpoint, this is the part where it's like, if you have the same two individuals that have the exact same, never going to happen, but exact same experience.
Yeah.
Exact same background, exact same degrees even. And if all of a sudden one is paid, $20 an hour more, probably a terrible example, but let's just go with it, right? Or 20 grand more a year.
Yeah.
And you sit there and look at that and you're like, okay, was this happening more across the board? Like, what is it, because it's a male, or is it because it's a female? Whatever that may be.
Yeah.
For equitable, it's you've got to look and make sure that things are within a certain degree of I'm going to say equity based off of that experience and the background and the degrees or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
But in fairness, a lot of times that happens, or pay equity happens, because exactly what we talked about before. A male is more apt to go, I checked off two of the boxes, let me apply, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm going to raise my hand because, you know what,
Right.
let's see. And they're really confident when they go in, which women take note, like we can be confident too, right?
Absolutely.
They are more likely not to negotiate on the pay. They're like, woohoo, I got the job, let's go. I should just be thankful for what I have. Where it's like, well, hold on a second. And so that's the part where I feel like how I can help influence that is, again, friends, family, whoever it may be, go into your own research for what is the market paying for that based off of your experience before you just say yes, so that you are having a shot to come in. Because sometimes I don't think it's necessarily somebody making that decision of like, oh, I'm going to pay this person 20 grand less. Nobody's doing that. It's how you're coming in. And if sometimes, right? But did I answer that? What would you guys say?
I think
The
you did
difference
a
between
great
that
job
fairness
of
versus
answering.
equitable? Okay.
I think you did a great.
So, what do you think, Cyndi? I mean, from your days back in dealing with those situations, like, what are your thoughts around that?
I mean, I think, Krystyn, you did a beautiful job of explaining the difference between the two. And just one thing I would add to that is then it's helpful for us to reflect for ourselves, or to go to our mentors, our friends, our trusted advisors, people that, to your point, like, don't just say yes, whether it's salary, whether it's a job, whether it's an opportunity. Maybe talk to other people that you really trust, like your top 5 people that you surround yourself by, right? Or with, and just talk to them about it so that you feel that support. Because I think if we look at like the DNA of a good leader, like you're talking about, Krystyn, it's, somebody who recognizes that there should be fairness, there should be equity, you should be holding your hand out to other people. It's sort of helping people develop that DNA. I go back to that. There's a lot of barriers to that nowadays. So how do we kind of encourage people to get there so that it does feel more equitable and it does feel more fair? Linda, what would you add to that too?
I like that. I think you both were spot on. And I think the only other thing that I might say is just to remember that equitability doesn't mean it's all across the board. We used to talk about this when we were thinking about like in the public sector and, people who could work from home or people who couldn't work from home, and thinking about that. There are some jobs where like police officers, sorry, can't work from home. You cannot be a police officer
Not going to happen.
and work from your home. Trash men, Department of Transportation. There are certain roles that just don't allow for that. And so it doesn't mean that we're not being equitable to those people by them not being able to. It's just the nature of the job. And I think sometimes we confuse being equitable with being like the same, and the same is totally different. Like, we can't treat everyone exactly the same because the role is different, the person is different,
Right.
all of that. And so I think understanding what equity really means is really important, especially when you go into negotiation, and that fairness is not defined by you individually either all the time. It's like, it's just because I don't think it's fair, it doesn't mean that it isn't fair. It's just might be my
Yeah.
perception of what I think fairness is in that moment. But I think everything you said is like, do your homework, stand up for yourself, and then also be prepared to walk away. So if you're going to
Very
be
good point.
disgruntled or angry, and that's going to now impact, sometimes if you're going to go forward, you've also got to be willing to stand by that and say, maybe this isn't the place for me, and be willing to walk away. And I think that's hard to do
Mhm.
sometimes,
Yeah.
but better than being resentful, I think, forever.
Yeah.
So,
Advocate for
yeah.
yourself, but be real. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. No, I think that's really good. Well,
Yeah.
Krystyn, what would you say is like the importance of mentorship and sponsorship for women and leaders and leadership? Because, and it's not just all about women, right? You mentioned your other mentors that are male counterparts as well. So Mike Webb that you were talking about, like, what is important around that, and why is it important to surround yourself with good mentors?
It is. First of all, they challenge you in ways that you just sometimes can't see. One of my absolute favorite coaches, her name's Mary Sobin, and she, I know every time I get on a call with her, she's going to hear me, and she's probably going to kick my butt, and and she's going to help me see the thing that I can't see, and it's
Mm.
usually giving me a key for me to unlock what I need to discover, and usually it's
Yeah.
more about that self-development. And so there's a part of this, and I love Good to Great because it really defines what's the difference between like a good leader, right, or a level 5 leader. And that level 5
Yeah.
leader is, yep, you may be an executive, maybe top of the chain or whatever, but there is still a difference, and there's such a small population out there that makes it to that level 5. And that level 5
Yeah.
really, the only difference is actually humility. And humility is the part where I'm like, I refuse to lose that as a leader, regardless of the
Yeah.
title. And it's interesting to me because I've always had a philosophy, and again, this is all going to be wrapped up in readings and studies and all that. But
Mhm.
realistically, it comes down to the fact that if you are you're successful, you better be looking out the window saying, and here's how I'm successful. These are the
Yeah.
people, the coaches, the mentors, the
Yeah.
team members that made this happen. It's not just me,
Yeah.
right?
takes
But
a
when something's
village.
going wrong, I literally have a mirror in my office. It's right there. I don't look at it just to see what I look like, right?
Right.
But it is truly a reminder for me of, you better look in the mirror as a leader,
Mhm.
because when something's
Mhm.
going wrong, even though it would be so easy, there are certain situations where like, it's clearly this person did this.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
What can I take away? How did I impact that? Where's the
Yeah.
accountability as a leader that I
Mhm.
have around this specific situation? And so being able to take that ownership and look in the mirror and the accountability around it, that's a part where like I focus on not losing that. And so I've had mentors and coaches, and again, I feel like everyone should have somebody. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of everybody needs a therapist, everybody needs a coach. So when you physically
Yeah.
look at what these coaches and mentors, a role that they play, it's not that they're always just sitting there saying, you're doing great, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're the ones that are actually having the
Challenge.
hard conversations with you, saying, okay, this
Mhm.
is great. Quit throwing a pity party, and this is what you need to focus
Yeah.
on next, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. They don't just tell me what I want to hear. They actually tell me the thing I need to hear. And what I've
Mhm. I
also
like
found
that.
is the higher that role, right, the less
Mhm.
likely people are to tell you when you're wrong. And
Very
so
true.
it
Yes.
becomes even more important to be able to have those voices so that you can continue to be a good leader and to grow as a leader.
Yeah.
A leader that still hears the voice of their people, right?
Yeah.
That's balancing business, clients, team. I mean, that's the balance I have every day. So
I
Yeah.
like that.
you need someone from the outside looking in that can
Yep.
tell you and push you to be even better, and even more so as you continue to grow in title.
I
I
love
like that.
the symbolism too of the mirror.
Me too.
I was
Mhm.
listening to, and Linda, I know you like Mel Robbins as well. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
a fan of hers or not. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys heard where she talks about each morning, as a part of your morning ritual, you should look in the mirror and like give yourself a high five. And I was like, that's kind of silly. And then I thought, but wait a second, I do that with my team members. I do that with clients. I do that with family and friends, and so like knuckles or high five or whatever. So one morning I just looked in the mirror and I gave it a try, and I was like, oh, it kind of like gave me a little dopamine hit there. And I think that. Not only to your point, Krystyn, I love like you look in the mirror to say, okay, what was my role in this? What can I do better? But also, how am I doing? And what can I do to support myself as I do with other people that, that I am kind of supporting and things.
Yeah, because it's a lot about self-care.
Yes.
I'm curious too. One of the things that you said, Krystyn, talking about humility, and I know Patrick Lencioni in his book, he talks about you want leaders who are hungry.
I have all of them right there.
No, Pat Bennett, my boss, a big fan, so that's who turned me on to him. But I'm curious. I got into a debate one time with one of my colleagues about humility and that how important humility is, and she was like, no, I think humility is, it's you there. You need to not be humble. Like you got to go out there. You got to advocate for yourself. And I'm like, okay, so I think you're confusing what humility actually is. So talk a little bit about humility, because it's not saying, like pat myself on the back. Yeah, I did a great job. That's okay to do that. But talk about the difference between maybe humility and maybe a little bit of arrogance. So.
I was literally going to answer, or I am going to answer the question around like, what is humility to me? And humility is realizing I'm not the only person in the room. That at the end of the day, there are other amazing human beings that are on their journey too, that are just as, just what's the word I'm looking for? Like I don't know if I know the word I'm looking for. There's other people in the room that matter. It's not just you. And that, especially as a leader, and I know that there's interesting debates around like, what is servant leadership and is it good? Like, when's the right purpose for it? And like, so if you take that from a thought process of like, what is humility? To me, it still attaches a bit to being a servant leader. And there are times where you really have to put yourself at the back of the line to make sure everybody's taken care of first.
Absolutely.
There's also times where you got to come and lead from the front, because that is what the team needs. And so it's knowing kind of which role to be able to play for your team and being able to stay in tune with the team of what is needed. But when I think of humility, it means recognizing I'm not the only person in the room. There's a lot of people in this room that matters. And so I know Vicky always used to say like, okay, Krystyn, how many team members are we at today? As if she didn't already know. And a part of that was just the reminder of this is how many lives depend on me. This is how many lives that I am helping and influencing, and hopefully for the better. And then take that with their partners and take that with their children. We love animals here. Add the fur babies too, right?
Absolutely.
And so the impact that we're making, and like it's a heavy weight at times. Trust me, I feel that. But at the same time, it's so rewarding to know, okay, we're helping create an environment for these people to be successful and to be successful at home as well. So for humility, it's you are not the only person in the room. There are other human beings here that matter, that we care for. And sometimes you have to put yourself at the back of the line to make sure they're taken care of first. You balance that. Like, that does not mean I'm not confident.
Exactly.
I'm confident.
Exactly.
You feel it when I walk in a room. I can still be confident and know that I'm here. Let's have a conversation, right? So that does not mean that you lack confidence. There's a difference though between confidence and ego. And I do believe that you have to understand that distinct difference. So humility is knowing I'm not the only person in the room, and there's other thoughts that are here. And if you really think about it, like probably smarter thoughts. So we've always had a teamwork focus. More heads are better than one, right? More thoughts are better than one. And so you got to be able to step back and hear all of that.
Yeah, no, I like that. A friend of mine, Scott Montgomery, likes to say there are no self-made millionaires. So anybody who says, well, I'm self-made, no, you aren't. You might have forgot about all the people who helped you get there, but you are not self-made.
Yeah.
That's right. Exactly.
That's great.
And I love that because it's so true. Nobody is self-made. There was someone along the way who gave you a hand up or a hand out.
Yes.
And so I don't think that's a terrible thing. So that was great. That was really good. I like that a lot. So so how do you foster an inclusive culture then to help women, really kind of advance in leadership roles? Because again, we don't want to be the like bearing the cross of it's all just about women and we forgot about men. Because men sometimes can feel that way a little bit as we're talking about women empowerment, that, they're getting left behind somehow. But so how do you find that balance in empowering women, but also, like I say, not leaving the men behind either? So.
Yeah. So I mentioned, leadership development and making that available, to all. And again, even past gender, just how are you helping others around you, regardless of any of the diversity levels? So I think that there's an aspect there where, again, that fairness, kind of question, does everybody get the same opportunities to be a part of that? And so I think that that's a part of the answer of how do you balance that? And again, even just as simple as what I mentioned before, I've had dads that are like, hey, heard what you did, Michelle was telling me about this thing that you did with her. Are you open to doing that, with me? I'm a first-time dad and I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, happy to do it, happy to sit down and just, again, let's do these little one-on-ones to be able to share like what to expect, again, to be able to balance that life, because the reality is that male may have even more pressure of like, okay, I got 2 weeks off. I'm going to come back and like it's as if I didn't have a baby because I'm not the one that had the baby. I'm like, no, you're still there for not only your child, but also, your partner.
Yeah.
And so,
for sure.
Being able to balance out, like they're going through something significant as well, and a very exciting part of their life. I remember having this conversation recently with one of my team members, and it was such a great conversation because it was about that fact of like, hey, I've had a lot of males at the end of their career continue to say the same thing over and over and over. And so here he is in a great opportunity where his wife's about to have a baby. It's going to be their first. She's going to be, stop working as a full-time person, and like she'll maybe take on some like more PRN opportunities that are after that. But it was an interesting conversation because I was like, consider, there's this feedback that we've gotten that just because you may be the the main income coming in doesn't still mean that means you have to be gone working all the time. And so make sure you do have your balance. Make sure you do have your 4 o'clock and this travels, right?
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. So just from a like a gender roles type thing, like you can challenge that even as a male of what that role may be from a family standpoint, so that you're not sitting here 65 telling somebody, I wish I'd spent more time with my kids.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit about like putting on the shoe of somebody else and understanding their journey, right? And so just that's where the empathy part comes in, which I think women do really well.
Women do empathy really well. I
have another question, kind of a follow-on to that then, Krystyn. So if I were, and the people who are listening in, hopefully they're going to attach to this, but if you're new in a leadership role, because I think a lot of times we put that on people when they do a great job as an individual contributor, we're like, oh, you'd be such a great leader, manager, whatever. What are maybe, and I love actionable kind of steps. So what are maybe like the first 3 things you would say, Cyndi, here's the first 3 things you should do as a new manager or leader.
Get a mentor.
Successful. Okay.
I think we established that, right?
Yes.
It's and reason being because newer leaders usually have this spot where they're this mindset of like, I need to prove that I should be here. Like I just got here, so let me go make that big impact.
So true.
And they plan something completely out of like, this is what I'm going to do, but they may have done it in a vacuum because again, they're trying to prove I should be here.
I have all the answers.
Exactly. Nobody has I do not have all the answers. I'm going to raise my hand right now. So part of that of having some outside voices that you're listening to that are helping you maybe massage that idea so that it may be more successful, right, when you go to roll it out or implement it. But a lot of times I see new leaders like rush to that, prove that I'm, going to make an impact as a leader. So just, you don't have to prove yourself. You're there. You earned it, right? That's something I have personally had to overcome is because I have had so many amazing people that have helped me along the way that you get in your head of like, should I be here? Is this...
Right.
Nope.
Yes.
You earned it. You don't have to prove it anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
but focus on the impact that you are making. And so let it be incremental to get to that spot where like you can really
like
feel
that.
it and see it instead of just run to
Yeah.
it. Because let's be real, as a new leader, you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay.
You are, for sure.
That's
Yeah.
number 2. You're
I
going to make
love that.
mistakes, and it's
Okay.
I
going to
like
be
that. You gotta make
okay,
mistakes.
right?
Yeah.
So there's a part of that where hopefully you work in an environment where that's acceptable, and hopefully you have a good sounding board that you can own it and say, I did this is what happened, wasn't my intent, so help me figure out how to get past to the other, you know?
Yeah. I love
And my
that.
third is a lot of times what you will find is people are coming to you with their problems. There's a great article by Harvard Business Review. To remember the exact title, it has to do with like, it's not my monkey is the best way. Something with monkeys in there.
That's good.
And it talks about, and I share this with my newer leaders as a reminder of like, okay, again, new leader, I'm here to fix and help make everything better. And then all of a sudden you realize like, I've taken on everybody's problems and you're just trying to fix everybody's problems. What we know to be true is if you fix everybody's problems, one, they're going to continue to bring you their problems to fix.
They are. Yeah,
Great
that's right.
point. Yeah.
I believe one of the best things about leadership is to help other people figure out how to fix their own problems.
Yeah.
Which means you've got to change your style. And this is something I've had to do over all the years in leadership because it's real. I'm a fixer. So it's really easy for me to lean back and go, let me just fix. It's actually easier. But to remind myself, no. My job is to help them figure out how to fix this so that they can, continue to advance themselves. So my number 3 is you're not here to solve everybody's problems. You're here to help empower people to figure it out. And the best thing you can do is to coach your people to bring you solutions and ask for your opinion on those solutions.
I love
versus just, hey, what do I do? How do I fix this? And you tell them.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
Yeah, those are my 3.
I cannot wait to share this episode with a few people that I think could really benefit from that advice.
No,
that's great.
Absolutely. Well, and then trust, right? So if they're going to bring you their problems and you're going to empower them to bring those solutions, then you have to trust them to then go and handle it. So, because that's the other hard part, right? Is letting go and letting them go with Elsa, being the Elsa and letting go and just saying, okay, I trust these people. They're in these positions for a reason. I'm going to trust them to go and solve that problem.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yes.
I hear Patrick Lencioni too. You got your first foundation of trust.
We're big fans. We're big fans.
Absolutely. We are. Yes. Yeah. No, I think that's really good. Well, so what's the best advice you ever received as a leader?
Good question.
Yeah, this is going to be weird. Okay. So this is early. So years ago and maybe even a different time, but I had I don't even remember the situation, but it was an important meeting. I think I had just become a director, which by the way, I became a director after I had my first child. I came back and they were like, oh my God, you were doing the work of 3 people. We're going to let you hire people and now you're a director. And I was like, I should have more babies. That's fantastic. You know?
This is a beautiful thing.
It was wild. And I was so grateful. So all that to be said, I remember being an early director. And I was getting invited to this, meeting, and I was so excited. And there was a lot of people coming in, a lot of males coming in. And I will never forget because I am such a, what can I do for you? Right? I'm like, I want to make you comfortable. I want to help you get situated. Let me take your coat. Like, that's me. And this other who was a little bit more advanced than me in her leadership, thank goodness her name's Allison. Allison pulled me inside. She was like, I'm going to give you some advice before everybody walks in. I was like, okay. She was like, do not get their coffee.
Oh, yeah.
Good advice.
Yeah.
And then I was like, what? And then, okay, she was like, as a woman, do not offer to go get their coffee. And I was like, okay. And then
I love that.
They come in, they sit down, and literally, there was this moment where they were like, I think we'll have some coffee. And she was like, it's in the break room. And I was like, I get it now.
Allison.
Right?
Yes.
So I was like, so it was her advice. And again, this was a decade and a half ago, right? But the advice was in that moment, you got to be their equal.
Yes.
That's right.
Don't go get the coffee. And I was like, oh my gosh. So maybe an odd answer to the question, but it was like early days as a female leader. That's such a giving person. She's like, don't get their coffee. I was like,
I love that.
And it helped you and it helped her because she was probably like, it's taken me a while to get, the respect and that I want out of this group as well. So, don't take all of us women backwards by offering, to go get their coffee.
I love that. No,
Even though it's a beautiful thing to do, but
yeah.
I know. I was like, this is really hard for me.
Yeah, right. I know it's hard to do that to just facts, and I love that. If you could change one thing about how organizations view women in leadership, what would that be?
Mm. I feel like emotions are taken as weakness still
I love
today.
Yeah.
And I have cried in front of my organization on more than one occasion. When I'm passionate, when I'm excited, or when I'm protective, it comes out that way. When I'm just so proud, it literally comes out. And they can't stop it. Trust me, I've tried. And what I've learned, and this is something Vicky taught me, never apologize. Don't apologize for showing that emotion. And I've gotten to a spot where I can now coach, don't apologize. Whether it's a male or female, I don't care. I'm like, just, it's okay to have this, right? You're entitled to your emotions and your feelings.
Krystyn? Like because I'm so that way too. I totally wear my heart on my sleeve. Linda knows that about me. And so if I start getting emotional about something with my kids, with my team, with in a whatever situation, what would you, how would you
what do you say?
Like instead of saying I'm sorry, what would you say?
Yeah, what do you say?
Yeah.
Don't even, I guess I continue to talk through it and keep going. And the amount of females and some males that have come up to me throughout my career of being comfortable with showing those emotions, they have let me know how much it's helped them to get comfortable with it. And that even in a conversation with their boss, I will never forget this conversation. She was like, I was telling my boss something, I was really upset, and I started crying. And I don't know what was said. I think it was still, again, viewed as showing emotions as a sign of weakness or whatever. And her response literally was, Krystyn can cry, and she told me it's okay. And I was like, oh, like, okay, get it? But I'm like, what was the other context around this? Let's make sure this is being used for good. I think it was, but at the same time, I think it's organizations, like it's okay to have passion. It's okay to have emotions. It's not a weakness. It's usually a sign that, like, okay, we're tapping on something here that's very meaningful for this person. And so, do I love that do I love that every time I'm that passionate that's the way sometimes it comes out? I'm like, there's days where I'm like, really, Krystyn, this is it? Like, 'cause I'm not sad. This is what's happening. But it is, I have found more times than none that the team actually appreciates seeing that raw emotion. They know they have a leader that cares. They know they have a leader that's behind them, and it ends up being for the better. So
that's awesome.
Like,
that is
passion. It's okay.
Really good.
Thank you for sharing that with us too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's normalizing. We've been talking.
And Cyndi, there were times in my transition, I would have said, like, I'm sorry, and then I will correct myself in the moment. You know what? I'm not sorry. It's okay to show this passion. So I think I did that for a while before I finally was like, I'm not apologizing anymore.
I'm just not going to say it. I'm just going to share my message.
Just keep going.
Right.
Just keep going.
I love
that.
It's so good. That's so powerful. So what's your vision for the future of women in leadership, and kind of your hopes for the next generation of female leaders that come behind you?
Yes.
Good question.
Such a great question. I hope there's more. I hope there's more of us. I hope there's more of us lifting each other up and not tearing each other down when those promotions happen, when we find more leaders in leadership. I hope that we can continue to advocate for flexible work-life balance and for being able to support who we are at home and who we are at work, because it's literally the same person. There's no half here and half there. It's literally one person, right? And so I do think that women leaders bring a level of empathy into the organization that just is incredible and beautiful, and allows for mistakes to be made and for things to be corrected, allows for you to be able to grow and be okay with the growth mindset versus just, I got to be right every single time I walk into this meeting. I have to be right, you know? So I hope to be able to see that influence. I love and I'm excited to see the next generation come up, because they're going to do things I never even thought about, right? And being able to continue to make this, especially in the ecosystem that I'm in. I'm excited because I'm surrounded by amazing CHROs all day, every day. I'm surrounded by on one of my clients' accounts right now, I have a very powerful CFO who's a female, and I'm like, go get it, and it's interesting too, because at times when you going back to one of your other questions there, when you have that woman who may seem like she's got a little bit more of a bark versus, it's interesting because I've even found like even if you're just able to pull them one-on-one and just have a conversation, it's a little bit different than doing it in front of everyone where they're still their environment's going to be different than yours. Their environment maybe that is how she is surviving.
True.
It is how she got there.
Really
That's
good
right.
point. Yeah.
Right. And so, just I hope to continue to see more women come into leadership, so that when you're sitting in a meeting full of 15 people, there's one other person across the table, right? That's has a little bit of the same journey as you. But women, let's lift each other up.
Yes.
Stop tearing each other down. When that person then becomes that manager.
Yes.
It's not because she doesn't deserve it or let's bring up all the past of like this one thing that they did.
Yes.
Heck yes.
Cheer 'em on.
Right. And then,
Cheer 'em on.
and one day it'll be my time. Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I would love to see that more in this world.
I love that.
That is amazing, and such a great note to leave everybody with. I love that so much. Krystyn, thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thank you.
We hope you'll come back again. We'd love to have you come back for another episode. You got so much nuggets of wisdom. We didn't even get to touch on everything. So I'd love for you to be able to come back and share some more with our audience.
Thank you.
Thank
you for thinking of me. I very
Krystyn.
much appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I've told you, your team, they were all over me when they saw the podcast. They're like, Linda, you have got to get Krystyn on your podcast. And I
they
said,
were right.
Yes, they were. And I was like, if you think Krystyn would come on my podcast, I will ask Krystyn to come and join Cyndi and I for sure. I'm like, well, that's what we're looking for. People like Krystyn.
Yes.
So no, we're super excited that you were willing to join us. And we just want to give a shout out to all of our audience out there. And thanks for another great episode, Cyndi. And I'll look forward to
Linda.
seeing you next time. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the HR Her Resources podcast. We're so happy to have you with us on this journey. Music and production by Logan Misegadis of LJM Productions. We'd also like to thank our intern, Lauren Banas, for creating our logo and supporting our social media postings. If you'd like to connect with Logan or Lauren, you can find their information in the show notes. If you found value in our discussion and think someone else might as well, please follow and subscribe to our LinkedIn and share with a friend. Until our next episode, please take care and continue to support one another.